Welcome back to the Deep Discog Dive. I'm no longer Mike the Snare, I'm just the... Trademarking process has been hell. The Mike and the Snare of Mike the Snare recently broke up, and they've just been going at it for the past few weeks. But thankfully, they've agreed to put their differences aside for the sake of this next dive. Who knows, this might be their rumors. Today, we're talking about Fleetwood Mac. Let's dive in.
Mind you, they did make some of their best music back then.
Rumours.
No, that's all true.
This time we start off in London circa 1967. Guitarist Peter Green was playing with well-known blues group John Mayall and the Blues Breakers. One of the perks of being a blues breaker was getting free studio time, and Peter recorded 5 songs with fellow bandmates, drummer Mick Fleetwood and bassist John McVie. These sessions inspired Peter to start a new band. Mick was on board, but to convince John to join, Peter named one of the recorded songs after the rhythm section, Fleetwood Mac. Does that mean it's actually pronounced Fleetwood Mick? McVie still said no, so they brought in Bob Brunning on bass, plus Jeremy Spencer on guitar. Their first show was in August 1967 at the Windsor Jazz and Blues Festival. Maybe it was the success of the show, or the potential FOMO of not being in a band named after him, but within a few weeks, Bob stepped down and John was back in. There you have it, the full lineup of Fleetwood Mac, which will not change at any point during their history. Peter Green's Fleetwood Mac made their recording debut in January 1968 as the backing band on Eddie Boyd's 7936 South Roads, but the band's proper self-titled debut released a month later in February 1968. And it is exactly what you'd expect from 4 seasoned blues musicians. Mick and John are remarkably in tune as a rhythm section, lending synchronous heft to tracks like Shaker Moneymaker and I Loved Another Woman. Jeremy's raspy voice gives energy to the more rollicking tunes like Opener My Heart Beat Like a Hammer, and Peter complements Jeremy with a deeper voice, which gives a soulful feel to songs like Long Grey Mare and Merry Go Round. Speaking of Peter, his guitar playing is pretty damn great. He had already made a name for himself as one of Britain's premier blues guitarists. Heck, he got the gig with John Mayall as a replacement for Eric Clapton, and he managed to stand tall on his own. My only grievance is that the whole record can blend together. It can be hard to tell what sets one song apart from another, especially in the latter half. But hey man, it's blues. Good old-fashioned blues rock. Fuzzed out guitars, 12-bar chord progressions, a singer saying stuff like, I'm down on my luck, I'm lost in the fog, my girl done left me for a Cheeto dog. If you enjoy blues music, you will almost certainly enjoy this. I enjoyed it for sure, though I was very surprised to learn that this is how Fleetwood Mac started. If, like me, you were expecting to get into the more recognizable songs early on, to perhaps see your reflection in the snow-covered hills, strap in. This is gonna take a while. Fleetwood Mac's debut album was reviewed well and sold well enough to get into the top 10 of the UK charts. These days, it's considered a highlight from this British blues boom of the late 60s. A few months after, the band released 2 singles, Need Your Love So Bad and Black Magic Woman. Wait, that Black Magic Woman? The one Santana hit? These guys wrote that? Their second album was recorded in just 4 days and arrived a few months after their first, Mr. Wonderful, in August 1968. The clearest difference between this and their debut comes in the added saxophones and keyboards. Producer Mike Vernon brought them in to flesh out the band's sound. The keyboard contributions in particular were from friend of the band and fellow blues musician Christine Perfect, and they can make a big difference on songs like Rollin' Man, Need Your Love Tonight, Stop Messin' Around, and Evening Boogie. Aside from that, it's blues! Again! Everything about the debut is here in some form or fashion. Mr. Wonderful does benefit from the added instruments and a more full sound, but I would still probably recommend the debut over this one. And it turns out I wasn't alone in that opinion. Mr. Wonderful is seen by many as a slight step down from their debut. Fleetwood Mac was due for a shakeup, and they got one when Mike Vernon visited the rehearsal of fellow British blues band Boiler House and met their guitarist, Danny Kirwan. Peter Green initially helped Danny to find new bandmates by placing an ad in Melody Maker, going through 300 applicants and not clicking with any of them. But much like 2 leads in a rom-com, Danny and Peter realized that the one they were looking for was right there all along. Plus, Peter wanted another songwriter on the team because Jeremy wasn't pulling his weight. And so, Danny Kirwan was recruited as a new guitarist. In November 1968, the band released their first single with Danny, Albatross. It's a 3-minute, slow-burn instrumental, and it's the band's best song so far. I don't think this was their Echoes moment necessarily, but it is still a remarkable shift in approach and tone. Less brash and more mellow, willing to quiet down and find subtler intricacies. This will be a key quality of this new phase of the band, and the public sure loved it. It became the band's first #1 single in the UK. Shortly after Albatross, Fleetwood Mac got themselves a proper manager, Clifford Davis. January 1969 saw the release of English Rose, their first compilation album in the US. That's Mick Fleetwood on the cover, by the way. In April 1969, they released another single, Man of the World, which became another big UK hit. It was only one of 2 songs released through Immediate Records, along with Somebody's Gonna Get Their Head Kicked In Tonight. But Immediate looked like it was gonna tank at any moment, so the band started shopping around for a new label. Applecore offered to bring them in. Mick's wife happened to be the sister of one of the guys who started the company. He was a part of this other British rock band. You probably haven't heard of them. They ultimately decided to go with Reprise Records, which was under the umbrella of Warner Brothers. In August 1969, they released The Pious Bird of Good Omen. It's their second compilation album. It was way more successful than English Rose, and it has a funnier name. This is a great entry point for anyone looking to get into the early bluesy side of Fleetwood Mac. But the new era of Fleetwood Mac properly kicked off with Then Play On, released in September 1969. In contrast to the past 2 albums, this is way more of a studio album, making use of overdubs and other studio techniques. The blues is still there, of course, but the success of Then Play On comes in how the band twist traditional blues concepts and structures, finding ways to subvert and surprise. Tracks like Comin' Your Way, Underway, Rattlesnake Shake might start out like typical blues ditties, but they'll eventually bring in new sections, scale back on instrumentation, or just run wild like a mad lad. Speaking of mad lads, Danny Kirwan. With him in the band, Fleetwood Mac get to actually slow down, and we get to see more songs in the same subdued vein as Albatross. Closing My Eyes, My Dream, Although the Sun is Shining, all showcase this new approach, as well as Danny's great guitar skills, very well. As a whole, Then Play On is a clear step forward for Fleetwood Mac, a confident showing and a sign that the boys were not mucking around. They were macking around. If this album be the food of love, then it stinks but smells better over time. Then Play On got mixed reviews when it first came out. Rattlesnake Shake was meant to be the big single, but that honor ended up going to the separate single, Oh Well. We got their first live record, Blues Jam in Chicago, in December 1969. This was taken from a run of shows in the US earlier in the year. But while the sonic blues were starting to leave out the front door, the emotional blues were sneaking through the back doggy door. Over these past few years, Peter Green's mental state had been slowly deteriorating due to LSD abuse. His trouble soon came to a head, and in April 1970, Peter left the band after a European tour. His final song with Fleetwood Mac was the single The Green Manalishi with the Two-Prong Crown, because of course it was. But instead of petering out, Fleetwood Mac soldiered on and released Kiln House in September 1970. With Peter out, Danny Kirwan became the main driving force for the band, with Jeremy playing second banana. What we get here then is a more thorough exploration of the style found on Danny's songs from Then Play On. Aside from mid-album highlight Hi-Ho Silver, the blues is nearly gone. In its place is pure rock music. Whether it's acoustically intimate like One Together and Blood on the Floor, or a full-on jamboree like July Judy or Station Man. Helping with the broadened sound is Christine Perfect, once again providing some parts on keys and vocals. Or should I say, Christine McVie. She and John got married back in 1968, and she made her first public appearance as a member of the band a month before Kiln House released. She also did the album artwork. Kiln House is a solid album and a great companion piece to Then Play On. It feels like Fleetwood Mac had really landed on a new definitive sound to explore, so naturally they didn't. Kiln House saw Fleetwood Mac's profile grow further, which was helped by another compilation album of older recordings. Even with Peter's absence, things were looking up. In February 1971, Jeremy left to hang out with his bandmates to get a magazine. When he came back, he didn't because he joined a religious cult. So Jeremy was pretty fed up with the Fleetwood Mac life by this point, and after a perfect storm of self-doubt and premonitions, Jeremy joined the Children of God. So with Jeremy now entrenched in the throes of religious salvation, Fleetwood Mac needed a replacement. For a brief moment, that replacement was Peter Green, who played a few shows on this tour, but they got their official replacement in summer 1971 with Bob Welch. A few months later, we got Future Games in September 1971. Let's talk about Bob Welch for another second, because he ended up causing another shift to Fleetwood Mac's sound. For one, he was a dirty American, so instead of the blues background shared by the Blues Breakers bunch, Bob brought in influences from folk and jazz to help add a layer of haze to the band's sound. A clear example is the title track, a premier cut of blurry rock that builds on itself across 8 minutes. Unlike past songs by the band, it doesn't explode as much as it expands. Great song. Danny continued to evolve his style, his writing becoming more luscious and intricate than before on songs like Woman of a Thousand Years and Sometimes. We also get the first official songs written by Christine McVie, and I apologize in advance, you're gonna hear me say this a lot, but her songs are great. Morning Rain and Show Me a Smile display a newfound heart that will only keep growing as we get further into the band's discography. With Bob Welch's contributions and the band moving ever so closer to a pop sound, Future Games is a good time. It may be a more transitional release in the grand scheme of things, but it's worth a listen. Future Games continued the band's slow crawl towards stardom, and it got the band on the road for the rest of 1971 into 1972. Danny and Bob were often tense with each other, though, as both vied for the role of the band's leading star. Their next record was recorded in only a few days at Delane Lea, which, fun coincidence, is where Queen recorded their first songs. Just 6 months after Future Games, we got Bare Trees in March 1972. Now first off, Danny, still killing it. His intricate approach is still paying off in dividends, with Sunny Side of Heaven and Dust as proof. But the real win here, in my view, is Bob and Christine stepping up their songwriting game big time. In fact, they're responsible for 2 of my favorite songs on Bare Trees and 2 of my favorite Fleetwood Mac songs ever. Sentimental Lady. Hell yeah! Bob, what kind of magnificent being appeared to you in a dream telling you to write this song? It's so tender, especially with that pre-chorus amping up into the glorious vocal harmonies on the chorus. I've enjoyed other Fleetwood Mac songs before, of course, but this might be the first song that I unabashedly love in the same way that I love the band's most well-known songs. However, it would take a few years and a re-recording by Bob Welch for this to become a big hit. Speaking of tender, Christine's Spare Me a Little of Your Love. Christine, did you get visited by that same being? Such a pure and welcoming love song. This would be one of the few early 70s tracks by the band to get played in their later years, and for good reason, because it bops. Bare Trees is excellent. Just like Then Play On, this is yet another evolution for Fleetwood Mac, and had I been alive, I would have been on everyone's butt to listen to it. Unfortunately, I was not alive in 1972. Bare Trees didn't make much of an impact, at least in the US. It would eventually become the earliest Fleetwood Mac album to be certified platinum, but we are a long ways away from that. Not helping matters was Danny. He had developed a nasty problem with alcohol, and his relationship with the rest of the band was quickly becoming strained. In August 1972, before a show on their US tour, Danny smashed a guitar and refused to go out on stage. He was fired by Mick shortly after. To replace him, the band added Bob Weston and Dave Walker the following month. In March 1973, just 6 months after Bare Trees, Fleetwood Mac released Penguin. Let's start here. The first 3 tracks rule: Remember Me, Bright Fire, and Dissatisfied. The first and third tracks are Christine's, and they continue her winning streak from Bare Trees. Bright Fire is from Bob Welch, and he achieves this comforting yet ominous tone with the chord progression and lyrics like, I've seen the future come true in 20 days. The rest of the album is fine, but to me felt like a slight letdown after Bare Trees. And I hate to admit that some of that letdown is because Danny was gone. Over the last 4 albums, Danny had left an indelible mark on the band's sound. I understand why he was let go, of course, but it doesn't sound like the band know what to do now that he's gone. At least, not yet. Maybe some of that is also due to the new guys, Bob and Dave. They each contribute 1 composition, and they don't make the same kind of impression that Danny or Bob Welch did. So yes, Penguin is another transitional record. Definitely some songs that are worth remembering, but unless you're determined to listen to every Fleetwood Mac album, it's not essential listening. Despite the slightly more mixed reception, Penguin outsold every Fleetwood Mac record before it. This was largely because, as the UK's blues phase was slowing down, the US was ramping up into their mega blues mode. The album also made this Penguin the right proper mascot for the band for a good while. That's right, This is the Fleetwood Mac Scott. After the Penguin tour in 1973, Dave Walker was dismissed. Apparently they thought his voice wasn't well suited to the band. Along with Dave's departure, personal problems started to show up again, especially with the McVie's marriage. 6 months after Penguin, we got Mystery to Me in October 1973. Is it too late to change mascots? This back and forth between killer album and transitional album is getting tiring, but I'll take my wins where I can get them. One such win is this album, which sets a new high point for the band. Bob Welch and Christine had taken over most songwriting duties by this point, which is an absolute good. The straight-up blues throwback of The City, the bounce of acoustic jam Keep On Going, the waterfall of backing vocals on For Your Love, even the cheesy drum machinery on Forever comes off as cute and endearing. The album's biggest hit was Bob Welch's Hypnotized. Just like with Brightfire, the way he writes chord progressions creates this uneasy atmosphere. The keyboard-heavy production and solid groove definitely help too. Altogether, it makes you feel like you're in a lulled state. You put this on, close your eyes, 4 minutes and 50 seconds later, you've eaten the doors at the Raising Cane's in DeKalb, Illinois. But I also gotta say, people are sleeping on the closer why. The free-flowing guitar starting off, more pieces coming in like an organ and a string orchestra, those emotive vocals at the end, all fading out with those beautiful guitars. A stellar way to end. When it comes to this album, there's no mystery to me why it's great. Mystery did continue pushing the band forward in sales and acclaim, but not in any major way. They kicked off another tour, and it started out strong. Honestly, it's deserved. After the drama that they've dealt with up to this point, I wouldn't want anyone or anything mucking in their affairs. I didn't mean affairs like that. In fall 1973, during the US tour for Mystery to Me, Bob Weston had an affair with Mick's wife, Jenny Boyd Fleetwood. Mick was understandably devastated, but he did try to put that feeling aside for the sake of the tour. I can only imagine how stressful those shows were. After a few shows, though, he fired Bob and called off the remaining 26 dates of this tour. From how everyone spoke about it afterwards, it really looked like Fleetwood Mac were going to take a long break, if not end entirely. That didn't happen, of course, but the reason why they didn't end is thanks to Clifford Davis. Now, Clifford was big mad, and he had a right to be big mad. The cancellations meant he was about to get shafted in fees by promoters and venues, plus have his reputation as a manager effectively ruined. He let the band know too. He sent letters to everyone ripping into them. But he didn't stop there, because, you see, Clifford also claimed that he owned the Fleetwood Mac name and the right to pick who was in it. Clifford brought in musicians from another band he managed and sent them out on the road in early 1974 as the new Fleetwood Mac. These new musicians were in the dark on all of this too. They were told Mick would join later on. Initial shows were actually well received, but once people figured out what was going on, things got very rough. Half of the shows were canceled by venues, and the other half saw the band getting harassed and heckled. While all of this was happening, the real band was trying to reclaim their name. They went to Warner Brothers, they went to lawyers, they went to everyone they could. Bob Welch even convinced everyone to move out to California to cut down on trips from the UK to the US. By September 1974, Clifford was out as manager, the new Fleetwood Mac was a musical pariah, and the real band had made California their new home. And they made a new record. Somehow, during all of that, actual Fleetwood Mac managed to work out a deal with Warner Brothers and release Heroes Are Hard to Find in September 1974. And the dial switches back. Even for being yet another transitional record, Heroes feels especially slight in the grand scheme of things. I feel like I should like it. Bob and Christine wrote every song on here. This should be a goldmine. There is some good stuff here though. For starters, this record earns its right to existence solely with the opening title track. Easily one of the best songs to come from the band so far. Christine's Come a Little Bit Closer is another winner, a sweeping outpouring of love. Special shout out also to Bermuda Triangle, which has some real fun and I think tongue-in-cheek trutherism about the Bermuda Triangle. Even with a few highlights, it can feel like the band wasn't fully attentive during these sessions, like they were distracted by something else going on in their lives. I can't quite put my finger on it. Heroes did make it into the top 40 of the US album charts, but with no big hit like Hypnotize, it soon petered out of public perception. Speaking of petering out, after the Heroes tour, Bob Welsh left the band. He was tired from having to deal with legal troubles and keep the band afloat. Hey, I don't blame him. Now down to just 3 members, Fleetwood Mac was in need of another shakeup. Mick began searching for a new guitarist and a new studio to record in. He eventually found Sound City Studios and its engineer Keith Olsen. While they were hanging out, Keith played Mick a song from a record he had mixed. It was by this up-and-coming singer-songwriter duo, and Mick was pretty impressed. He was subsequently introduced to Lindsey Buckingham and offered him a spot in the band. Lindsey accepted, but only if he could be joined by his songwriting partner and girlfriend, Stevie Nicks. It was kind of a perfect mutual desperation. Mick was fresh off a sales disappointment with his band's 8th lineup, while Lindsey and Stevie were barely scraping by as a duo. And so, on New Year's 1975, both Lindsey and Stevie joined Fleetwood Mac, despite signs that they were close to breaking up. Nah, I'm sure that's nothing though. This new lineup set up shop at Sound City in early 1975. Lindsey and Stevie brought in multiple songs that they had worked on prior to joining. The group dynamic was okay, though Lindsey's demeanor was confident verging on demanding, which the other band members were not super fond of. Maybe it was this new energy that made Fleetwood Mac feel like it was getting a fresh start, a new introduction to the world. And that's what we got. Fleetwood Mac. Again. In July 1975. I mentioned before that the meetup of Mick and Lindsey was one of desperation, but a far more optimistic read is that Mick's band had progressed artistically enough to meet Lindsey and Stevie where they were. That certain kind of sun-tinged acoustic pop wouldn't have fully worked for Fleetwood Mac before now, and with this album, oh, did they rise to meet the moment. Let's look at this album's biggest hit as an example, Rhiannon. A love letter to music and the feeling it gave Stevie. And as a listener, that feeling to me is pure ascension. Dexterous vocals by Stevie, a smooth, subdued groove by the rhythm section, and those tight vocal harmonies after the chorus. The other songs from Stevie and Lindsey show them as perfect additions to Fleetwood Mac, bringing to the band catchy melodies and fuller production. Monday Morning, I'm So Afraid, and especially Landslide, a tender contemplation of life's many challenges. The fact that this wasn't a hit when it first came out is a tragedy. Plus, Christine McVie wasn't about to be shown up because she clears house with her songs Warm Ways, Over My Head, and Sugar Daddy. Fleetwood Mac is a remarkable reintroduction and an excellent starting point for this new lineup. Maybe this is finally a sign that this band had reached a point of true stability. What's the next record? Fleetwood Mac, the album, didn't really blow up at first, but the band was committed to touring the hell out of it. It took 15 months of shows before the album saw the top 10 of any major Billboard chart. The real victory, though, is Fleetwood Mac had a lineup that stayed together for more than a year. They did it! They finally got a good group going with no issues or So at one point during all that touring, the personal issues between John and Christine came to a head. By the end of their touring, they were staying in separate hotel rooms, and in 1976, they properly divorced. Okay, that's a bit of a setback, but hey, they were still willing to, work together in the studio. Like, that's fine. What about Lindsey and Stevie? How are they doing? Oh, their relationship troubles were also flaring up? Okay, that's fine. That's fine. I mean, like, if they're willing to, like, put that aside when it comes to the music, that's okay. We can make this work. Oh, wait. Mick's still going through the whole bandmate slept with my wife thing. And now his marriage is officially dissolving. Oh my God. This isn't a perfect storm. It's a perfect tsunami, hurricane, wildfire, and tornado converging like an emotional Voltron. And that's just the relationship stuff. For this next album, the band were also trying to follow up the success of their last album and deal with the tabloids and paddle backwards on a river of cocaine. The making of this next album was nothing short of traumatic. Now, some might say these are perfect conditions because great art often comes from suffering. And I reject that. I don't buy that. I don't think that artists should have to suffer in order to make great art. The only problem, though, is that Fleetwood Mac's next album was this. And I'm not saying this proves artists have to suffer for great art, but if you were going to use any album as proof, it's this one. In February 1977, Fleetwood Mac released Rumors. Okay, let's break this down with a pie chart. Let's assume some percentage of this album is chalked up to the emotional turbulence. There's no denying that it informed the record's making, but even if you claim that this album is nothing but the sounds of unbridled emotional mudslinging, it doesn't really sound like it. Sure, there are breakup songs or songs that mourn relationships, but a lot of this record sounds happy and is about the happy parts of relationships. Don't Stop, for example, that's such an uplifting song, an upbeat bop about looking to the future and not being bogged down by the past. Or Songbird, a gorgeous, loving piano ballad that Christine just totally bodied. Surprising considering that it only took 30 minutes to write. But the songwriting speedrun record for Rumors goes to Stevie Nicks' Dreams, written in 10 minutes, a mature and optimistic outlook on a broken relationship with some of the most succinct romantic wisdom ever dropped in music. It went on to be their only #1 hit in the US. So some of this album is the drama, some of it is the killer songwriting, and some of it is the attention to detail. Many of the songs here are, from a recording perspective, articulately constructed. Never Going Back Again, for example, the guitar strings were switched out every 20 minutes to retain brightness. Godspeed to the intern who had to run all over looking for strings. So the final song is a whole bunch of those takes on top of each other, giving the impression of this guitar orchestra. It works really well. The last piece of the Rumors pie is drugs. Some of this one is just pure drugs. For real, the recording sessions were mostly debauchery. The fact that anything got recorded is a minor miracle. The band actually wanted to thank their drug dealer in the liner notes. They didn't, not because anyone told them not to, but because their dealer died before the record came out. I think all of this culminates in the album's centerpiece, The Chain, which took nearly a whole year to finish. A tense sparseness sits on the verses like a western shootout, then the chorus butts in, with the chorus creating this layered effect that mimics a chain. And the last minute is that guitar just wailing away and the full band busting out a glorious harmony. It's a stunning microcosm of what made this iteration of the band work so well. I'm looking at my notes here and I realize I haven't outright said this yet, so let me be clear. Rumors is excellent. Better than excellent, in fact. It's a finely tuned hit machine and the best Fleetwood Mac record released so far by a wide margin. Though I'm still bummed that they had to go through so much pain just to make it. Or you know what? Maybe there's another way of looking at it. Rumors is not great because the band suffered immense pain. It is great despite that. Fleetwood Mac channeled their situation into a bona fide, stone cold classic. Rumors was pretty successful, you know, people liked it at the time. There's a couple people around today who, you know, still like it. Almost instantly, it saw widespread acclaim and insane sales. After a decade, 11 albums, and 9 lineups, Fleetwood Mac had truly made it. The band went on a worldwide tour to promote Rumors from February 1977 to August 1978. In the middle of the tour, though, the band carved out time to get working on a follow-up. There were 2 things the band knew going into these sessions. This follow-up would be a double album, and it would sound nothing like Rumors. The band used royalties to build their own studio. That makes it seem like this gave the gang a new sense of freedom, but Warner Brothers was still charging them for its use, so this record got real expensive real quick. Not just because of the scale of these sessions, but also the decadent extras that the band could now call for. Oh, also, cocaine. That was still a thing. In October 1979, Fleetwood Mac released their first double album, Tusk. But here's the thing, Tusk isn't really a double album. It's 3 mini albums by the band's main songwriters, Stevie, Christine, and Lindsay. The songs by Stevie and Christine are actually pretty normal. If you heard them on their own, it'd be easy to assume that they were tracks from the Rumors sessions. In fact, the band's engineer at the time, Ken Calais, would later say that most of these songs would have fit just fine on their next record. The major difference is that these songs tend to sprawl and meander more than the focused pop perfection on Rumors. Sisters of the Moon, Over and Over, Think About Me, Beautiful Child, Honey High, they're all very good songs that expand on their sound while continuing to demonstrate the killer songwriting they now wielded. My favorite of the bunch is probably Sarah, written by Stevie and allegedly based either on a daughter she never had or on a friend who hooked up with Mick after their affair. Ah, god damn it, I forgot about that. Yeah, following Rumors, Mick and Stevie had a fling for a few years. They spoke very highly of each other after it ended. It's fine. It's fine, okay? So if Stevie and Christine's songs stay in Fleetwood Mac's usual lane, why is this album considered a curveball? This guy. When I said Fleetwood Mac wanted to make the Anti-Rumors, I meant Lindsay wanted to make the Anti-Rumors. At the time, Lindsay was enamored by post-punk, bands like Talking Heads and The Clash, plus the Beach Boys' Pet Sounds and their unreleased album Smile. And everything he did during the making of Tusk was in the name of glorious experimentation. For example, he had a replica of his home bathroom built in the studio, positioning microphones in a way to capture that certain reflective quality you'd hear on post-punk records. He'd encourage Ken Calais to take all the knobs on the mixing board and turn them 180 degrees just to see what happened. Hell, he once taped mics to the floor of the studio and recorded vocals while doing push-ups. You can actually hear a bit of that on the final album. Listen to the backing vocals on Not That Funny. If you want to know what the rest of the band thought of Lindsay during this time, check out this credit on the Tusk vinyl. Special thanks from the band to Lindsey Buckingham. If this band made Tusk today, they would have just listed his IP address. Now, let me be clear. I think Lindsay's stuff on this is pretty good too. It's wild and adventurous, and it pushes the boundaries of what a Fleetwood Mac song could be. Lead single Tusk is a great example, housing the band's chanting inside of a production led by a marching band. There's something really captivating about the guttural way they all yell, "Don't say that you love me." It showcases how Lindsay's gambles could pay off, even though the use of the USC Trojan Marching Band was actually Mick's idea. And other songs like That's All for Everyone and That's Enough for Me boast some well-executed production ideas within sublime songwriting. But I've still gotta admit, hearing his songs spliced in between the more standard fare from Stevie and Christine can feel either like mad genius or whiplash-inducing insanity. It's like listening to a playlist that shuffles between Phoebe Bridgers, Haim, and Merzbow. This is an easy comparison, but Tusk is Fleetwood Mac's White Album. Even though they already have a White Album, but you know what I mean. They're Life of Pablo, they're Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, a record that gets its emotional power from its contradictions. It's a bloated, crazed depiction of the effects of world-conquering success. But it's also still a good time, and now with the full context of the band's history, it's much easier to appreciate. Tusk went on to sell 4 million copies worldwide and garner 6 hit singles. It was a complete commercial failure. I mean, yeah, 4 million copies is nothing to scoff at. In fact, for any other band, that's huge. It just so happens that it was this band whose last album ended up in 1 out of 6 American households. The band blamed the underperformance on the whole album getting played in full on radio right before it came out. Some have also pinned it on the price tag, which would be nearly $60 if it was released today. Imagine buying Splatoon 3 and getting Not That Funny. The gang took a break after their Tusk Worldwide tour, though we did get this lineup's first live album in December 1980. Stevie, Mick, and Lindsay used this break to drop solo albums, the most successful of these being Stevie's Belladonna, which gave us hits like Edge of 17. Later in 1981, they reconvened in France for a new album. Aside from substance issues, the making of this one was calm compared to the last two. The goal was to dial back the experimentation and make something more grounded. Lindsay was willing to play it safer this time, but he said making this album felt more like a day job. In June 1982, Fleetwood Mac released Mirage. Well, first off, they definitely succeeded in making a more grounded album, because this one feels like you woke up from a bad dream and your mom comes in and says, "What's a Tusk, honey?" Stevie straight back continues the thread started by Sarah with mounting gorgeous instrumentation. Christine bookends the record with 2 excellent tracks, Love in Store and Wish You Were Here. She also wrote Hold Me, a surprise hit in the UK with a killer guitar solo at the end. Oh Diane is Lindsay's best song on here and shows that he writes great tunes even when it's his day job. Empire State Okay, that one is pretty weird. Lindsay got his one curveball. So yeah, Mirage is proof that Fleetwood Mac could still Fleetwood make great pop songs. But it's also a new kind of album for the band. You see, up to this point, the band has largely made either fully excellent albums or transitional albums. Mirage is neither. It's not fully excellent, and it's not a real transition for the band. It is just a good Fleetwood Mac album. Nothing less, but also nothing more. The most unfortunate thing, though, is there is one song on here that is phenomenal. One that was performed in dedication to a close friend of Stevie's who died of leukemia. One that stands toe-to-toe with any of the band's best songs. And its name is increasingly considered a Romani slur. This one might start fading out of popular rotation for that reason, but on a sonic level, it's a great single with a sublime piano hook. For real, Fleetwood Mac, if you're watching this, please go back into the studio and re-record this with another 2-syllable word like vacuum or kumquat, and you're golden. You're good to go. Mirage did prove to the public that Fleetwood could still mac, as it got the band back to the top of the charts. Another hiatus ensued after a tour. We got more solo albums from Stevie, Mick, Lindsey, and Christine. Lindsey began work on a third solo album, but eventually it morphed into the next Fleetwood Mac album. The sessions for this one were once again tame, but this time to the point of boredom. Stevie also was only present for 2 of the 18 months they were working on it, since she was still promoting a solo record. In April 1987, we got Tango in the Night, the most 80s Fleetwood Mac album. Its sound is indebted to the technological advances of the time, but instead of sounding dated, Tango still sounds luscious. Somehow this feels like a nearly perfect middle ground between the tight pop of Mirage and the sprawl of Tusk. Isn't It Midnight and the title track are massive soundscapes with synths and guitars flying everywhere. Big Love and Welcome to the Room, Sarah strike a more percussive tone, and Christine once again comes through with my 2 favorite songs here, Everywhere and Little Lies. The former's chorus is this enveloping swirl of vocals, synths, and reverb. And God, I love the way everyone enters on the chorus of the latter. Tango in the Night is a damn good album, one that updates the band's sound without veering into pure cheese. 5 albums in, this lineup was still keeping things fresh and interesting, which means only one thing: something's about to mess it up. A tour for Tango was scheduled to start soon after the release, but right before it, the band met at Christine's house in August 1987. By all accounts, this meeting did not go well at all. Emotions got high, Lindsey and Stevie got into an actual fight, and by the end, Lindsey had decided to leave the band. Mick later said that Lindsey didn't want to tour, but then changed his mind to say that he wanted a ton of extra musicians to come along. To replace him on tour, they brought in 2 new members, Billy Burnett and Rick Vito. November 1998 saw the release of their first Greatest Hits album. This was my personal introduction to the band back when I was a youngin', and it's a good entry point into their sicko era. For Tango's follow-up, the band brought in Greg Ladani to produce. You would know him best for sonically blessing the rains down in Africa. The latest lineup of Fleetwood Mac released Behind the Mask in April 1990. According to every bandmate, they all look back on this one pretty fondly. It was a real collaborative effort, with everyone getting a chance to write songs and have a spotlight. That's great! For them, I mean. The album they made is pretty bleh. Sky's the Limit is a fine opening track by Christine, but I cannot take the opening seriously. It sounds like generic opening music for a Windows Movie Maker project. She also wrote Save Me Though, which is the album's biggest hit and best song, in my opinion. And the newbies, Rick and Billy, are okay. Their tracks, including Love is Dangerous, When the Sun Goes Down, In the Back of My Mind, are acceptable country rockers. Nothing wrong with them really, but there's basically no personality to them. But all in total, it's fine. Behind the Mask is fine. It's an understandable shift into adult contemporary soft rock, and the second I look away from it, it will cease to exist. 1991 saw another big blow to the band. Stevie Nicks and Rick Vito left, and Christine retired from touring. Later on, she would publicly discuss her fear of flying as a primary reason. This band was in need of unity, in need of one central figure to guide them forward. And in 1993, they found that figure in Bill Clinton. The Rumors lineup reunited to play Bill Clinton's inaugural ball. This wasn't just because Bill liked the band or liked the push-up vocals on Tusk, but because Don't Stop was his campaign theme song. The gang did have fun playing together, though no further reunion plans were made. But it was received well, and it got Fleetwood Mac a ton of public attention, inspiring the making of a new album. It also inspired 2 new members joining the band, Dave Mason and Becca Bramlett. Fleetwood Mac released Time in October 1995. So with yet another lineup, we gotta ask, does this hit gold immediately like Fleetwood Mac 75, or is it more transitional like Behind the Mask? Oh, it's a whole new level of trash. Time is the least good Fleetwood Mac album, to the point where I've gotta say, this isn't Fleetwood Mac. Now, I know that's rich to say about a band that flips members like someone who flips houses, but I'm telling you, the songs by the new people are some of the most generic, bargain bin 90s country music I've ever heard. These songs don't belong on a Fleetwood Mac album. They belong on a cracked CD you find for $1 in Goodwill. Thankfully, we do get 5 songs by Christine McVie, and they were all recorded away from the rest of the band, so that's a great sign. These are fine, but it just feels like she didn't want to be on the record. I say that because she didn't want to be on the record. The only noteworthy thing on the album is the closer, These Strange Times, a 7-minute ambient piece with Mick Fleetwood delivering spoken word, the only time he's ever stepped in front of the mic. That's a neat little historical fact. And here's another, the song still stinks. This record is not worth your time. Time didn't do a damn thing. It didn't even crack the Billboard album charts at all. After Time's release, Billy and Bella left to form a country duo, and Mick decided to split up the band. Over the next couple of months, the Rumors lineup would mingle, do some gigs together, make a song for the 1996 film Twister, and all that. After enough hemming and hawing, the whole gang got back together in May 1997 to perform at Warner Brothers Studios for an MTV Unplugged special. This recording was later released in August 1997 as The Dance. A nice pose there, Mick. It's a set list of all the classics you'd expect, some unexpected revisits like the Rumors era track Silver Springs, and a couple of new songs. They even got the USC Marching Band to help them do Tusk, and it performed shockingly well. It would go on to be the 5th best-selling live album of all time in the US. The Dance also gave us a few hits, live versions of The Chain, Silver Springs, and Landslide. Finally! It took 30+ years before this live version gave Landslide the attention and respect it now has. Feeling invigorated from The Dance's success, Fleetwood Mac went out touring arenas for the rest of 1997. But before you get your hopes up, the band ended the tour with no future album planned. Plus, the next year, Christine McVie fully left the band. Fast forward to the early 2000s, and Lindsey was working on a new solo album. Warner Brothers saw that and said to him, "Hey, that's cool, buddy, but hear me out." Fleetwood Mac? Lindsey accepted the idea and brought in Stevie, John, and Mick to flesh it out. No Christine this time, though, making this the first Fleetwood Mac record without her as a proper member since 1970. In 2003, Fleetwood Mac released Say You Will. Now, after the past 2 albums ranging from tolerable to
I will die in the next 5 minutes,
I wasn't expecting much out of this one, but I was very surprised to find I enjoyed this album. It's a return to classic Buckingham and Nick songwriting, all cleaned up and given a fresh 2003 sheen. Stevie sounds revitalized on songs like the title track and Thrown Down. Lindsey gets to play both wild experimenter, like with his insane yelling on Come, or the rhythmically intense Red Rover, and confident hitmaker with the gorgeous Bleed to Love Her. And when the two join vocal forces on tracks like Miranda and Smile at You, there's definitely a flash of that old Fleetwood Mac-jic coming back to life. With that said though, there's 3 big things that hold Say You Will back from greatness, in my opinion. 1, some songs can feel too much like cynical hand-wringing. Lindsey has always been the more cynical lyricist in the band, which has been fine when it's tempered by the other songwriters. But when I listen to him bemoan the state of the world on the opener What's the World Coming To, or news media on Murrow turning over in his grave, I can't bring myself to feel invested. 2, no Christine means no unseen queen cleans between the scenes. Every song here is either by Stevie or Lindsey, and while they're still both good songwriters, Christine's specific style is sorely missed. Though if she were on here, then it would have compounded the album's 3rd and biggest issue: it's way too long. Way too long. This thing is longer than Tusk. You feel satiated by the 10th track or so, and then it stuffs another 8 songs down your throat. If this thing was trimmed down to 10 or 12 tracks, it would probably be a late career renaissance. As it stands, it's a pretty decent album.
Get you to dance.
it's only right that you should lay the way you feel it.
The years since Say You Will have mostly revolved around tours or bits of pop culture that put Rumors back on the charts. For example, as I'm sure you're all aware, the Rumors episode of Glee. For real though, they do a good cover of Never Going Back Again. I've always had a soft spot for that one. But it wasn't all live dates and longboards. In April 2013, we got the, as of right now, most recent officially released project by Fleetwood Mac, an EP called Extended Play. Nice original title, you guys. Reminds me of my classic YouTube video called YouTube Video. Name aside, this project is good. A natural continuation of what the band was doing on Say You Will. Only 4 tracks, doesn't overstay its welcome. It's not on streaming for whatever reason, but it's readily available on YouTube. September 2014 saw the On With The Show tour kick off, notable because it saw Christine McVie return to the band, and she's been with the band once again ever since. June 2017, we got a team-up album from Lindsey and Christine, Lindsey Buckingham, Christine McVie, and that's about it. Things are finally staged. Jesus, we were so close! Lindsey was booted from and tried to sue the band in October 2018. Apparently, it was either because Lindsey wouldn't sign off on their next tour, or because he got pissed when Rhiannon was their intro music at a charity event. That same month saw the band kick off their most recent tour, An Evening with Fleetwood Mac. To replace Lindsey, we got Mike Campbell and Neil Finn. There you have it, the full lineup of Fleetwood Mac, which will not change at any point during their history. As for any new music, there's apparently stuff in the works. Mix brought it up over the years, saying that it's been in various states of completion. I hope we do get another record from them, partly because I want to see what the lineup will look like. If you want to get into Fleetwood Mac, you should absolutely start off with the run of albums made by the classic lineup, Rumors especially, if you have not heard it. From there, the records I would recommend are Fleetwood Mac, Then Play On, Bare Trees, Mystery to Me, Say You Will, and Extended Play as a bonus. And if you have a favorite Fleetwood Mac song, album, related thing, I would love to know what it is in the comments.